There are hundreds of thousands of people around the world with incredible film and TV ideas bouncing about in their heads, but most of those ideas will never see the light of day because the tools to bring those visions to life are still too expensive and out of reach. But that could all change if the right video game company catches the vision and fills the gap in the market that nobody is owning yet. The need is global, the opportunity is huge, and it's time for the next big thing. I'm Haydn Rushworth. I'm a filmmaker, a director and a screenwriter, and I have a really big problem. For me, this problem is huge, heartbreaking and gut-wrenching, and I'm not the only one. There are screenwriters, directors, actors and cinematic creators with great big dreams all over the world with this problem. The problem is, our dreams are bigger than our ability to create them. For most people, the cost and complexity of the technology that turns big imaginations into big screen productions is completely out of reach, and our limitless ideas quickly reach the limits of our bank balance. But that could all change if the right video game company were to build the thing we all need: a virtual film set. It would be like a video game, but using next generation motion capture suits and facial recognition technology. It would be a totally new way to create cinematic stories. All the necessary technology for a virtual film set is emerging in little separate pockets here and there, and now we just need a company with the right vision to pull it all together and own that vacant space between the movie industry and the video game industry. If I could create this thing myself, I would, but I just don't have the resources or professional connections to turn this idea into reality. So I'm making this video and throwing the idea out there into the world in the hopes that somebody will jump on the opportunity and create the virtual film set that so many of us would love to use. So what would this virtual film set look like? Well, let me share the top 10 key features that the ideal virtual film set would have. Number 1, game environment. So first, this thing would look and feel a lot like a video game with a default menu of worlds to choose from for different genres and eras, from brutal prehistoric landscapes to ancient Middle Eastern cities to 18th century European castles and stately homes, all the way through to present day cities, towns and villages and battle-scarred war zones. And then into the future and to space, to infinity and beyond, and even a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Every film set imaginable could be slowly and steadily created as a digital movie set, a virtual environment for stories to be told. The next thing on the agenda would be a full-body motion capture suit, just like the Smart Suit by Rococo. This wouldn't be a visual motion capture suit though. It wouldn't have dots all over the suit and be filmed by lots of cameras. Instead, it would have movement sensors that are accelerometer controlled and GPS enabled, and they would capture and digitally record the position of each sensor point in time and space. Again, nothing is recorded optically with traditional cameras. Every movement is recorded digitally. Right now, with most video games, just a few buttons control character movement and direction in a very simple kind of forwards, backwards, left, right, up, down selection. And character movements are really limited to a preset selection of types of movement like walk, run, crouch, or jump. A digital capture suit like the Rococo Smart Suit would capture many more movement variables to allow actors' movements to look organic and realistic in the finished digital character that's seen on screen. Following on from the Smart Suit, digitally recorded facial recognition would be critical. This is because a key feature of bringing animated characters to life is a full spectrum of authentic and realistic facial expressions. Of course, we can't talk about facial recognition being essential without also talking about how essential it is to have motion capture gloves in order to bring actors' hands to life. If this virtual movie set is to be a blend between video games and cinematic CGI, characters must look, behave and feel much more like real people than video game characters. As well as motion capture for actors' bodies and faces, you'd need digital motion capture points that could be stuck to props to allow them to be used and behave like a real object. Things like guns or weapons that are carried and moved by the actors, or a bouquet of flowers that is carried and handed from one actor to another, or a chair that moves when somebody leaps to their feet, or a vase that gets thrown across the room. Each of these things would need several movement sensors attached to record their movement in the scene as well. All these movements could be digitally recorded in any physical space with an actor or two, but a dedicated studio space would make the job easier with adjustable scaffolding and blocks that could be moved and stacked to replicate things like stairs, chairs, beds, rock faces, or just rocky terrain that needs to be clambered across. The virtual set could be programmed to be a flat world without any steps, rocks, boulders or rocky terrain, and this would certainly make recording spaces simpler to work with. But for the more ambitious projects, an object room could easily be assembled with a selection of blocks and structures with standard sizes that correspond with standard sized object blocks in the virtual film set environment. In order to record scenes in moving vehicles like cars, planes, speedboats, jet skis, motorbikes, spaceships, horses and flying dragons, you'd need access to a variety of vehicle motion simulators. These would probably be too expensive for any individual filmmaker to own, but you could tackle this if a third-party company set up motion simulator studios that could be hired like using a gym. These studios could allow scenes to be recorded using a variety of different motion simulators. Once you have the ability to digitally record actors' body movement, facial expressions and props, you'd need to record the actors' voices using traditional audio recording tools like body-worn microphones and boom mics. You could easily film a scene with just 4 people, a director, a couple of actors and a sound technician. There would be no cameras, no lights, no costumes, and the set would just be an ordinary looking room. When the director shouts action, the actors play out the scene with all the data points from their bodies, faces and props being recorded as digital reference points in the virtual world, whilst their voices are recorded with microphones. Once you have all the data points and audio recorded and the director is happy with the take, that's it. You move on to recording the next scene. Once you've recorded all your scenes, we move to post-production, and this is where it gets really fun because the next stage would be a cross between filming and editing. This is where the skills of a great cinematographer, editor and director start to come to life. With the action recorded as data points, you'd have the freedom to watch that scene over and over from any conceivable viewpoint within the scene, as if you had had an almost infinite number of cameras recording when the scene was shot. All you'd need to do is change the viewpoint as the pre-recorded scene plays over. Wide shot, no problem. Medium shot, no problem. Close up, extreme close up, over the shoulder shots from both characters' angles, no problem. The director stroke editor stroke cinematographer would choose the most creative view to tell the story from and then drop that angle into the edit. Camera movement would hold infinite possibilities as well, from dolly and slider shots to crane shots, drone shots, gimbal shots and any type of moving shot imaginable. Like camera control, each scene would be viewed and edited from the viewpoint of any kind of lens you'd need, from wide angle to zoom lenses, with a shallow depth of field or an infinite depth of field. Any kind of lens choice could be replicated in the virtual film set. Finally, full lighting control would be the next exciting thing in the virtual film set. You'd have the ability to replay a scene with a near infinite combination of lighting setups. Hard lights, soft lights, any colour, any brightness from anywhere within the scene, either motivated by real light sources in the scene like the sun, street lamps, desk lamps, candles, gunshot bursts, explosions or car headlights, or entirely unmotivated light sources with no connection to reality at all, like Reese Witherspoon in Legally Blonde 2, whose character Elle Woods had a soft glowing hairlight in almost every scene in the movie, despite being set in the dusty, dark, dreary corridors of Washington DC. It's fine, it worked. The point is, the lighting options in this virtual film set would be almost infinite and would allow a skilled cinematographer to craft the mood and feel of a scene with a dazzlingly endless palette of lighting options. The ultimate idea would be to choose your camera angle, movement, lens and lighting after the scene has been recorded. Then in the studio game software, re-record several different takes of the scene, and each with a different camera angle, lens, movement and lighting setup. Then you'd import those different takes into the editing software like Final Cut or Premiere Pro and edit the rest from there. Now at this stage, it's really important that we give special mention to Matt Workman. He has developed a piece of software called CineTracer. Matt's efforts with CineTracer are the closest thing I've come across so far to the virtual film set that I am dreaming of and that we all need. So that's it, my top 10 key features of the ideal virtual film set. So if you're a screenwriter, an actor, a director, sound engineer, camera operator, in fact any kind of creative storyteller, and you'd love to help make this virtual film set a reality, please share this video far and wide with anybody and everybody you know, and maybe, just maybe, the CEO of a gaming company will jump on board and get this thing made so we can all start turning our cinematic storytelling dreams into reality. Whew. It's my movie, Captain Wishy Bloke. It's a really good movie. It's a really fun movie. I'll send a link to it so you can read it if you want to. But I love this movie. I want to see this movie so bad. Sometimes on a Saturday night, I get comfy and I will read it because I find it so entertaining, genuinely. And I wrote it. I know how it ends. But it's a really fun movie. I desperately want to see this thing made, but it's just not going to happen with traditional techniques because they reckon that it's too expensive for the size of audience. It's in that in-betweeny bit where they don't think the audience will be quite big enough. I think it will, but they don't. Hollywood doesn't. Got some great reviews from some people in Los Angeles. They just thought, too expensive to make. So I'm like, well, how are we going to get around this? Virtual film set.